Welcome to CSS Breakdown, book by book, where in Season 04, Episode 13, we open Will Durant's Fallen Leaves to a chapter that begins as a simple praise of women and blossoms into a profound meditation on their beauty, challenges, and divine role in life. Today, we're taking a deep dive into Durant's incredibly personal and philosophical reflections as he, nearing the end of his life, turns his gaze to the essence of womanhood. This isn't just a simple ode, it's really a rich tapestry woven with admiration, critique, and profound insight into life itself.
Indeed. And what's truly fascinating here, I think, is how Durant, this figure renowned for synthesizing vast histories and philosophies into, well, accessible narratives, how he applies that same rigorous yet deeply human lens to a topic as intimate and personal as his appreciation for women. He really challenges superficial notions of beauty and gender, encouraging us, and you, the listener, to consider the full spectrum of their existence, from the biological imperatives that shape us, to the societal roles we inhabit, and ultimately to what he perceives as this kind of divine essence within. This deep dive promises a really nuanced perspective, one that I think transcends mere sentimentality.
Okay, so let's unpack this opening section. Durant begins with a truly bold declaration, doesn't he? Sets the stage immediately. He knows this might be a controversial undertaking. He states his intention: before I die, sing a hymn in praise of women.
Yeah, it's immediate, powerful. You can feel the weight of a lifetime of observation behind it. It's like this is something he needs to say.
Exactly. It feels like a final reflection on ultimate values. But what's even more interesting and kind of disarmingly charming is how he immediately brings in his wife, Ariel.
Right. That part's great.
She, with her, characteristic wit, laughs at my ecstasy, and she suggests his praise should rather intone a song to my glands. Beauty, she thinks, is in the eye of the gonads.
Such a perfect human interaction.
Yeah.
Right. It's got warmth, that playful challenge, and this grounding dose of, well, biological reality.
Absolutely. And that opening exchange is crucial, I think, because it sets this very specific, multi-layered tone for the whole chapter.
It really does. It immediately grounds the discussion. It's not just about romantic ideals or, abstract philosophy. It's also about human nature, the undeniable pull of biology and the lived reality of their partnership.
And Durant's response, well, let us include the glands in our litany. That says a lot.
It shows his remarkable intellectual flexibility, doesn't it? His willingness to embrace different perspectives, even ones that playfully challenge his own core idea.
Yeah, within his broader admiration.
And this immediate concession to a biological understanding of attraction, it opens up a really fascinating question for us and for you listening. Can aesthetic appreciation truly be separated from biological impulses, like Durant seems to want to believe initially?
Or are they just inextricably linked?
Exactly. Maybe they exist on some kind of fluid continuum where one informs the other. He's inviting us into that very profound question right from the start. He refuses to give a simple answer.
And he really does lean into that question, grappling with it openly. Durant insists that he has often been aroused by the beauty of a woman without desiring her in any physical sense or degree.
Claiming it was purely aesthetic, which is a bold claim.
A very bold claim. And he acknowledges the skepticism, He admits, perhaps I deceive myself. He won't take no oath as to the lusts hiding in my unconscious or in my blood.
Which is remarkably honest, I think, and humble, especially for a man known for his vast intellect. He's acknowledging the limits of his own conscious understanding, right? Those subconscious currents that might be running underneath everything.
Totally. And he elaborates on this feeling, saying he has longed to approach a woman timidly and thank her for being such a joy to behold, without any ambition to possess her or even touch her hand.
He frames it as this deep, almost reverent and fundamentally respectful appreciation, devoid of that acquisitive desire.
Yeah.
And that's a key point. What's so compelling here is Durant's self-awareness, his intellectual honesty. He's wrestling with the very nature of attraction and appreciation in a way that, well, many philosophers might either intellectualize away or just avoid altogether. He's admitting the complexity of human experience. And he frames this aesthetic excitement not as some isolated thing, but as part of a broader, almost pervasive sensitivity to beauty in general.
Right. He reveals himself as someone deeply attuned to the world's inherent beauty.
Exactly. And women are, for him, a particularly potent and exquisite manifestation of that beauty. He notes he is abnormally excited by any form of beauty, and he gives these vivid, almost sensory examples.
Yeah, like the white clouds in a blue sky, or the honeyed fragrance of sweet alyssum.
Or the bright face of a passing youth, or even the splendor of a tall, straight elm spreading its branches out as if in a Whitmanic cosmic embrace.
That Whitman reference is interesting. It brings to mind Walt Whitman's expansive, all-encompassing celebration of life, nature, the human form,
Mhm.
that kind of democratic grandeur.
Precisely. So when Durant uses that phrase, he's not just looking at a tree. He's seeing it through this lens of profound, almost spiritual, universal appreciation. This isn't just about women. It's about a man deeply connected to the sublime in the everyday, the ordinary.
And yet, amidst all this profound connection to beauty, he observes that few seem innocent or sentimental enough to join me in thanking whatever gods there be for creating or evolving woman.
Mm.
That speaks to a kind of societal disconnect, doesn't it? It feels like he's lamenting that maybe the pure, unadulterated appreciation for feminine beauty is often overlooked or complicated or even kind of stifled by other factors.
Yeah, whether it's societal pressures or cynicism or even those biological impulses he just acknowledged.
It's almost a lament for a lost simplicity, maybe. A public reluctance to openly acknowledge such beauty without reservation.
I think that truly sets the tone and frames his whole argument. It establishes Durant not just as an admirer of women, but as someone who perceives beauty everywhere, yet singles out women as like a pinnacle of that beauty, a unique miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And his lament that this specific pure appreciation isn't more widely shared in its pure, unburdened form. That's a subtle but powerful invitation, I think. It invites you, the listener, to consider your own responses. How do you react to beauty, to attraction? How might your responses compare to Durant's profound, almost reverent sensitivity?
It's a challenge to look deeper than the surface, right? To question why we as a society might be hesitant to openly express that kind of unadorned gratitude for the beautiful.
Exactly. What societal norms or, internal biases might prevent us from sharing Durant's ecstasy, as Ariel puts it. It forces us to examine our own filters.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Because Durant doesn't shy away from confronting what he calls this dangerous subject head on.
No, he dives right in.
He knows that his initial hymn of praise might seem naive or at least incomplete if he doesn't address the counter-arguments. So he directly references these formidable critics like Arthur Schopenhauer and many of my contemporaries who, as he puts it, spent volumes attacking these vampires who suck our life out with their charms and snares. That's strong language.
Very strong. And bringing up Schopenhauer is significant. We should probably give a little context there.
Yeah, good idea. Because Schopenhauer was known for his, well, let's just say rather bleak and famously misogynistic views on women, right?
Putting it mildly.
Yeah.
He viewed women largely as manipulative, irrational beings. Basically, tools of the species designed for reproduction, often deceptive, superficial. He wasn't subtle about his disdain at all.
So for Durant to directly engage with such a potent negative counter-narrative, while still setting out to write a hymn in praise, how radical was that? What does that signal about his intellectual honesty?
Oh, it's profoundly significant. By tackling Schopenhauer head-on, Durant isn't just offering praise. He's building a robust philosophical argument against those prevailing, cynical, often prejudiced views of his time. He's effectively saying, look, I see the criticisms, I acknowledge the darker interpretations, and yet my admiration persists. Not blindly, but with full awareness of the perceived flaws.
It elevates it beyond just sentimentality.
Exactly. It turns his hymn into a reasoned, almost defiant philosophical stance. It tells us his appreciation isn't born of ignorance or naivete, but from a comprehensive, critical understanding of the human condition. Is really testament to his intellectual rigor.
And he absolutely doesn't shy away from listing those perceived flaws in what he calls some lucid intervals, which is kind of a humorous way of saying when he's being objective.
Yeah, detached from his usual admiration, maybe.
Right. He admits that many women have faults. And he doesn't just make a blanket statement. He lists several specific points, lays them out plainly.
It's quite a list.
It is. He says they are acquisitive, possessive, jealous, and proud. He also states they are seldom capable of lasting friendships, attributing that to their need to give so much time in winning, keeping, and giving love. He even points out that much of their beauty is artificial and has to be laid aside before retiring, and goes so far as to say they are capable of stealing another woman's husband, breaking hearts, and breaking up homes.
It's stark, isn't it? Almost unromanticized and certainly provocative, especially today.
Definitely. So, given his profound admiration elsewhere, what is he truly inviting us to consider here? Is this just a critical inventory list, or is there maybe a deeper, perhaps more empathetic observation about the human condition, or maybe the societal pressures that might lead to these perceived traits?
That's a crucial distinction, and I think it's the heart of Durant's nuanced approach. He's not just listing flaws. He's grappling with the full spectrum of human behavior. He's acknowledging that even in what he perceives as challenges, there's often an underlying human logic, maybe even a survival mechanism at play.
Mm.
So for you, the listener, this challenges us to look beyond simplistic judgments, to ask, how much of what we label as faults in any group, but especially in women historically, is really a manifestation of deeper societal dynamics, historical expectations, the pressures of their prescribed roles.
I like when he says they're seldom capable of lasting friendships because they have to focus on love and winning a partner.
Exactly. He's almost excusing it, linking it directly to what was seen as their primary societal function,
Yeah.
securing a partner and family. It wasn't necessarily seen as a character flaw, but a consequence of their situation.
And the artificial beauty comment, while blunt,
It points to the immense pressure on women to adhere to certain aesthetic standards, right? A pressure that was certainly strong in his era and, let's be honest, continues today in different forms.
absolutely.
So Durant forces us to consider the why behind the what. He urges us toward a more complex understanding of human behavior rather than just simple condemnation.
He then delves into what he sees as fundamental intellectual differences, stating women seldom think as objectively as some men. Now, that's a claim that definitely raises eyebrows today.
For sure.
How do we interpret that from his perspective? Is he just being dismissive? Or is there maybe a more nuanced observation about the prevailing conditions of his era that might have influenced this view? He's pretty specific about it, too.
He is. He explains it further, saying they are interested in ideas only so far as these are attached to interesting men.
Right, and that they often mistake wishes for facts and repetitions for arguments.
And then that quip, with his typical dry wit. Their vital force seems to skip their brains and exhaust itself in maintaining their luxuriant hair.
It's such a caricature, but it maybe reveals something about his perspective on gendered thinking back then. Almost a lament about where intellectual energy was often directed, or maybe allowed to be directed.
That's a critical question, and we really have to approach it with careful historical context. On the surface, yes, it can sound like a sweeping generalization, even prejudiced. And it highlights how much societal perspectives on gender have evolved, thankfully.
Mm-hmm.
However, if we try to put ourselves in Durant's shoes, in an era where formal educational opportunities for women were vastly different and societal roles often channeled their focus away from traditional academic or competitive pursuits, he might be observing a reality shaped by circumstance, rather than claiming an inherent biological deficit.
So less about capacity, more about conditioning.
Possibly. He even hints at it, suggesting their vital force seems to skip their brains and exhaust itself in maintaining their luxuriant hair. That humorous caricature points to where societal value and effort were often placed for women then. It's less about a true intellectual incapacity and perhaps more about an intellectual direction or focus that was culturally prescribed or at least encouraged.
That makes sense. And he critiques their perceived susceptibility to external influences too, right? Like the couturiers.
Yes, he notes they let themselves be fooled and gouged by couturiers who mistake novelty for beauty and who make a ninny of a woman for a price.
Right.
This isn't just about pure intellect. It's about a perceived vulnerability to external pressures, societal trends, which again speaks to the social conditioning of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It prompts us to ask, how much of what we still perceive as innate gender differences today are in fact reflections of subtle, or maybe not so subtle, societal conditioning and historical legacies? It's a question worth pondering.
And he extends this observation to their spiritual inclinations as well. He observes they listen more readily than men to peddlers of supernatural hope and consolation.
Right, for their worries and grief are not so soon forgotten in the swift turmoil of the world.
It's as if he sees a deeper need for solace in women, perhaps tied to their specific experiences or a different way of processing life's hardships compared to men who might get caught up in the turmoil of the world.
Yeah, it's a profound commentary on perceived gender differences and coping mechanisms and the search for meaning, perhaps linking it to the emotional burdens often placed on women, or maybe their more direct confrontation with life's vulnerabilities, especially those related to domestic life, family, childbirth, things like that. And Durant concludes this whole section by stating, women give the race fewer geniuses than men do, but also fewer idiots, which is quite a statement.
It really is. How does he justify that?
Well, he attributes it not to a lack of capacity, but again to differing societal needs and roles. He suggests men's intellect gets sharpened by economic competition or political finagling, things they needed to succeed in the public sphere. Whereas women, he argues, do not need so much of it because they are normally destined to motherhood in which instinct rules, and usually they win by instinct, all that the average male wins by calculation.
Wow, so instinct versus calculation.
That's his framing. And it really drives home that crucial question we touched on earlier. How much of what Durant describes here is what he sees as an inherent biological difference, and how much is simply a reflection of the profound impact of societal roles and expectations from his specific historical moment?
It's hard to untangle.
It is. He's offering a theory rooted in his observations, which is incredibly valuable for understanding his worldview and the intellectual currents of his time. But it's also a real challenge for us, isn't it? To avoid presentism judging the past by today's standards, and to truly try and understand the context from which he wrote.
Durant then takes us on this remarkable journey through the stages of a woman's life, starting with the young girl.
Yeah, the life cycle approach.
He paints this picture of her beauty with modesty, but then immediately adds this layer of really poignant foreshadowing. He notes she is vaguely, broodingly conscious that she is soon to be a hunted prey, then a fettered captive, then a racial tool.
Wow. Hunted prey, fettered captive, racial tool. That's quite a stark, almost deterministic progression of imagery, isn't it?
It really is. It suggests this preordained, perhaps inescapable destiny in his view. Yet he balances this darkness with capturing her youthful vitality, with natural roses in her cheeks, for she takes actively to play and sport, to bicycles and horses. He even finds a light in seeing her sit on the floor with her collie's head in her lap and her still pretty feet bared to breathe the air.
It's a beautiful, tender image.
It is, and it contrasts so sharply with the heavy future he foresees. It highlights that bittersweetness of innocence before societal expectations really clamp down.
What's fascinating here is precisely that blend, the idyllic, almost pastoral imagery, right alongside this stark, almost melancholic foreshadowing of the societal pressures and prescribed roles awaiting her. That progression from hunted prey to fettered captive to racial tool, it's a potent and, somewhat tragic commentary on the perceived destiny and the often restrictive societal expectations for women in his time. He seems to view her as almost biologically programmed for certain roles, yet simultaneously burdened by them.
It's not just a description, then. It's more like an empathetic observation of the constraints he believes they face from a young age.
I think so. The weight of their perceived inherent biological role combined with societal demands. He sees her innocence, but also the shadow of this predetermined path, almost as if he's mourning the loss of that carefree youth before it's even gone. And this raises an important question for you, the listener. How much agency did Durant truly believe women had in shaping their own lives, given the seemingly predetermined paths he outlines? And, maybe more pointedly, how much of this perspective might still be subtly present in societal expectations today, even if we don't use such stark language?
That's a heavy question. He continues this empathetic journey, saying, "My heart goes out to her as her adolescence nears its end." And he paints this vivid picture. Young males gathering around her, anxious for her favor, eager for the touch of her hand, her lips, and plus ultra.
Ah, yes, plus ultra. Latin for further beyond or more beyond.
Right. So Durant is subtly implying that unspoken, deeper intimacy that these young men desire, going beyond just holding hands or a kiss. It's the classic scene of youthful attraction.
But he immediately shifts focus.
Exactly. He shifts the immense personal challenge involved for her. He sympathizes with the winding, narrow road she must find between flirt and prude, between self-canceling conquests and intact solitude.
That's a perfect metaphor. A tightrope walk, a social minefield, where one misstep could really define her reputation back then.
Totally. And he suggests that as a direct result of being the prize of so many contests, she develops a preening vanity comparable to that of the sartorially meticulous male in the mating season.
Interesting comparison.
Yeah, but he sees it not as an inherent flaw necessarily, but more as a natural, almost evolutionary response to her situation. A necessary tool, maybe, for navigating a world where she is constantly evaluated.
This really highlights the immense pressure placed on young women back then, navigating these complex social expectations while trying to form their own identity. That winding, narrow road perfectly encapsulates the delicate balance they were expected to maintain.
To be appealing, but also respectable.
Exactly. Desirable without being seen as too forward or risking their reputation. And this raises another important question for us and for you listening. Is this preening vanity he describes an inherent female trait? Or is it, as Durant seems to suggest, a natural, perhaps even necessary response to a societal context where women are constantly evaluated, competed for, and often defined by their attractiveness and desirability.
He seems to lean towards the latter.
He does. He sees it as a logical outcome of being the prize. He's almost venturing into what we might now call an evolutionary psychological perspective, where outward display and careful self-presentation become adaptive strategies for navigating that specific social environment. It's a pragmatic rather than judgmental view of behavior that society often labels, maybe unfairly, as superficial. He's asking us to consider the function of such traits, not just condemn them.
He then zeroes in on what he sees as the immense burden laid upon her in choosing a suitor. This isn't portrayed as some light-hearted romantic decision. It's a monumental responsibility in his eyes.
Yeah, the stakes are incredibly high.
He emphasizes that she must choose not the one who will just stupefy her with adoration, which is maybe the easy romantic but ultimately short-sighted choice, but one who, by his stability, restraint, and economic sense, gives promise of being a faithful husband, a competent provider, a sound and sane father for their children.
It's such a pragmatic, almost cold list of criteria.
It is, and he views it as her primary responsibility, not just for herself, but for the future of her potential family, and really for the continuation of the human race as he sees it. It's a stark reminder of the practical realities that underpin even the most romanticized aspects of life.
Durant truly emphasizes the profound responsibility placed upon this youthful brain and palpitating heart. It's such a stark contrast to the purely romantic ideal often portrayed in literature or, popular culture, especially then. This really shifts the perspective. She's not just an object of desire or attraction anymore. She becomes this crucial decision maker with these weighty responsibilities for her future, her family's future. He's highlighting that for him, love and marriage, especially for women, weren't just about personal fulfillment. They were about foundational societal roles, about stability, about continuation.
It underscores the practical considerations he believed were paramount for women making this life-altering choice, far more than just romantic feelings.
Absolutely. It's a very grounded, almost unromanticized view of a pivotal life moment. And it forces us to consider how much of this practical burden still falls on individuals today, maybe particularly women, even if the romantic ideal is more dominant in our narratives. Is the choice for a lifelong partner still fundamentally a calculated decision for stability and compatibility, even if we dress it up in terms of love at first sight or soulmates? Durant seems to suggest the practical foundation is inescapable.
So the journey through a woman's life continues. Durant moves on to the bride, and he describes her with this powerful, poignant metaphor: timid and proud, like a gambler who has staked his all on one throw of the dice or turn of the wheel.
That's a great metaphor. It captures both the huge hope and the immense risk involved in marriage, doesn't it? The high stakes of this pivotal decision she's just made, based on those criteria we just discussed.
Exactly. And then in this quirky, very Durant-esque comparison, almost a whimsical little diversion, he acknowledges that one might argue for the superiority of a racing horse.
With his gleaming coat and his nudging nose.
Or of your favorite dog, with his shapely head, his bounding grace, and his understanding eyes. It's like he pauses to appreciate other forms of beauty.
Only to immediately reaffirm his ultimate subject. He always comes back to women. That whimsical diversion, pausing to compare women to animals, actually ends up underscoring his ultimate, unwavering, almost playful appreciation. It's a testament to how deeply ingrained this admiration is for him, that even after considering other beautiful forms, he returns to women as the supreme example.
It speaks to a deep, inherent bias, maybe, in his capacity for aesthetic appreciation.
Could be. And what's truly fascinating here is the global reach of his admiration. He celebrates women of such diverse nationalities. He actually lists them.
Yeah, it's quite a list. American, Irish, English, French, Spanish, Italian, German, Scandinavian, Polish, Russian. He even throws in a specific person. Did you ever see Anna Pavlova?
The famous ballerina.
Yeah.
And he continues. Greek, we called our lovely guide in Greece in 1936 Aphrodite. Hindu, Muslim. Have you read Arabic or Persian love poems? Chinese, Japanese.
And his conclusion. They are all, even if so briefly, miracles of form, features, and alluring grace.
That expansive, universal admiration for feminine beauty across such a wide array of cultures, it really illustrates the profound and inclusive nature of the beauty he perceives. It's not just some narrow Western ideal he's focused on.
No, it's global.
It's a global phenomenon for him. a testament to what he sees as the universal appeal of feminine grace, regardless of geographical or cultural boundaries. He's seeing this common thread of beauty woven through humanity itself.
He then declares, quite strongly, almost anything about an educated woman in her prime can make me maudlin.
Maudlin, yeah, that reveals the depth of his emotional response, almost to the point of sentimental excess, and he admits it.
And then he offers these incredibly detailed, almost poetic descriptions of his aesthetic appreciation. He gets very specific, very sensory in his observations. He marvels at the velvet smoothness of her skin, the creamy softness of her hands, the delicate touch with which she strokes your face and lightens your purse.
Huh. There it is again, that last part, lightens your purse. It's such a classic Durant touch, isn't it? Adding that humorous, relatable jab right into his adoration. It grounds his lofty praise with a dose of everyday reality, a bit of playful cynicism maybe.
Totally. And he expresses this desire to run my fingers through her hair if that would not disturb its inviolable set, which reveals both admiration and this respectful distance, a recognition of her carefully constructed presentation.
Yeah, he notices the effort.
And he admits a fear to look into her eyes, for fear they will lure me into depths, if only of bathos from which there is no return.
Bathos meaning the descent from the sublime to the ridiculous, right? An anticlimax.
Exactly. So he's saying her eyes are so profoundly beautiful they could lead him to some overly sentimental or even absurd emotional state. He sees profound beauty, almost perilously so.
Precisely. This deep, almost sensual appreciation is definitely tempered by that respectful distance and his characteristic disarming humor. The lightens your purse quip is perfectly placed, reminding us this is still a human observation, not pure deification. Even in adoration, he keeps his wit. And his description of her voice, tenderly lowered in love or expertly raised in song, makes me wonder is not a god working in the laboratory of evolution. That truly elevates the human to the divine, doesn't it?
It really does.
He's not just admiring a physical form or an auditory quality. He's seeing a manifestation of a higher power, some creative force in the very act of a woman's being and expression. It's a powerful testament to his worldview, where the natural world and human experience can reveal glimpses of the sacred. He's basically saying that the complexity and beauty of a woman's voice is so intricate, so perfect, it feels like it could only be the result of a divine hand guiding evolution.
He continues with his anatomical yet poetic observations, stating, I think the architecture of woman is superb from whatever angle seen.
Love that. Architecture.
I especially admire the frontal elevation, despite a tendency to weakness in support of overhanging masses.
Okay, that line perfectly encapsulates Durant's unique blend, right? You have the aesthetic appreciation, superb architecture, the frank, almost clinical anatomical observation, frontal elevation, weakness in support, and then that characteristic dry wit, overhanging masses. It's such a distinctive voice.
It really is. A blend of the classical and the practical, maybe even slightly comical. He then takes in stealthily the flashing of her ankles, the measured cadence of her nimble feet.
Stealthily. He's aware he's observing.
But then he playfully adds, almost with a sigh, that he resents the spikes that arm the nothings that she calls her shoes.
The shoes again. It's that small, relatable detail that just humanizes his grand observations.
Yeah.
A classic Durant touch, a little complaint about fashion practicality amidst the philosophical musings. It reveals his awareness of the practical, sometimes uncomfortable realities women dealt with and still do. And he concludes this section by describing, the grace of her movement is poetry become flesh. I gape intoxicated at the fluid ease of her walk across the room, as if some silent and invisible zephyr made her weightless on her toes.
Poetry become flesh. That's powerful.
It's a profound statement, isn't it? It encapsulates his total admiration for the physical and embodied grace of women, and it connects right back to his initial claim of purely aesthetic appreciation, making us wonder again, how much is truly objective observation and how much is deeply personal veneration? It's a beautiful convergence of the physical and the poetic. He's suggesting that a woman's very presence, her movement, is like a living work of art. And for you, the listener, it challenges us to look beyond just static physical appearance and to appreciate the artistry and grace in everyday human movement, just as Durant does so intensely here.
And so Durant brings us to the final and arguably the most profound stage in his meditation. She becomes a mother.
Yes, this is where his praise really hits its spiritual peak, I think, moving beyond aesthetics to the very essence of meaning and existence.
He describes the incredible dedication involved. 20 or 30 years of worry and solicitude to make that child and the next healthy, decent, and intelligent. He sees this monumental effort not just as nurturing, but as transformative for the woman herself.
Hmm.
She bears the strain and stress of that process in which she is a degenetrix, a begetting, almost a goddess. If anywhere there is divinity, it is here.
Degenetrix, Latin for God-bearing mother or mother of God. That is an astonishing elevation of the maternal role, isn't it?
Yeah,
Placing it right at the very heart of the divine as he perceives it.
absolutely.
What's fascinating here is precisely Durant's elevation of motherhood to this divine status. He sees it as almost a direct conduit for the sacred in the human experience. He's not just speaking metaphorically in some light sense. He's assigning a truly transcendent quality to the act of creation and nurturing.
It taps into something ancient, maybe?
I think so. It resonates with those ancient archetypes of fertility goddesses, earth mothers, found across so many diverse cultures and mythologies. It suggests that Durant's personal observation connects with this universal human reverence for the life-giving force embodied by the feminine.
And he takes it even further, doesn't he, with the biologist comment?
He does. He posits that no biologist could think of God except in feminine terms, for generally, in the world of life, the male is a tributary incident, usually subordinate, sometimes superfluous.
Wow. That's a radical reinterpretation of divine power.
It really is, aligning it fundamentally with the life-giving force of the female, seeing the entire natural world as affirming this principle. It's a profound philosophical statement on the primacy of the feminine in the act of creation, at least biologically speaking.
And he even finds justification for established religious traditions through this lens. He notes, Catholics have been right in praying chiefly to the Mother of God.
It's an interesting philosophical twist on a theological concept, isn't it? His biological and observational conclusions end up supporting a specific spiritual practice from his perspective.
And then he makes that deeply personal connection, grounding these huge philosophical musings in the very real, visceral experience he witnessed, referencing Ariel's pains in giving birth.
Yes. That makes it so much more powerful. It's not just an abstract thought experiment for him. It's a lived truth, something he observed intimately.
Adds a layer of authenticity.
Absolutely. It reinforces his idea that true divinity, or at least its most evident and undeniable manifestation in the human realm, lies in this act of creation and nurturing life. It places the mother at the very center of meaning and purpose. It's a profound shift, really, from a perhaps more common male-centric view of creation, often seen in Western religious narratives, to one that is distinctly and powerfully feminine, arguing that the divine is most clearly revealed right there in the maternal act.
For Durant, then, a mother does not have to ask if life has any meaning.
Such a declarative statement. The answer is inherent, self-evident in her experience, he believes.
He sees meaning explicitly in the growth of her children. When she sees her children growing in body and mind, she knows that she is fulfilling her destiny and that her destiny is fulfilling her.
It's presented as this cyclical symbiotic relationship with purpose. The act of giving and nurturing life imbues her own life with profound significance.
And he describes her future reward. It's a beautiful, really heartwarming vision. When those children have matured through the ills of childhood and the whims of youth into men and women with offspring of their own, she will gather that swelling brood about her, quietly proud and wordlessly happy that they are the fruit of her body and soul. It's a portrait of deep contentment, earned through a lifetime of dedication and, well, worry.
This culminates in a really powerful philosophical statement on the inherent meaning of life found through reproduction and legacy. Durant is making a direct challenge here to existential angst, to the idea that life might be inherently meaningless.
Yeah, he pushes back hard.
He asserts, with almost defiant conviction, only a botched mind, seeing her loving them and loved by them, would say that her life has no meaning. That's strong.
Very strong.
It's a polemical assertion against nihilism. He finds undeniable purpose in the continuity of life, embodied in the maternal role. He views the mother as the living proof that life is intrinsically valuable. That meaning isn't something we have to find somewhere outside of ourselves, but something we create and participate in through the very act of living and loving.
It's a powerful counter-argument.
A profound one, suggesting that the search for meaning ends right there, in the reality of connection and continuation.
And perhaps the most poignant and maybe the most sweeping takeaway from this entire meditation, something that extends beyond just motherhood to life in general, is his final thought here. If life is lived honorably and fully, it is its own reward, needing no significance outside itself.
That provides such a profound philosophical anchor, doesn't it?
It really does.
It suggests that the very act of living, of participating honorably and fully in the cycle of life, particularly as exemplified for him by motherhood, holds its own intrinsic meaning and justification. No external validation needed.
It's a powerful, almost self-contained philosophy, drawn from the deepest wells of human experience as he saw it. It offers a kind of comforting, maybe even empowering thought about the value of a life well lived.
Yeah, it's really a call to find purpose in the unfolding of life itself, in the relationships and the contributions, rather than constantly searching for it in external doctrines or some kind of posthumous reward. The meaning is in the living. Hashtag had outro.
So, okay, what does all this mean for you, the listener, as you take this in? Durant's hymn in praise of women. It really isn't a simple song, is it? Or just straightforward admiration.
Not at all.
It's a really deep dive into the multifaceted nature of beauty, the often unacknowledged challenges women faced, the complex societal roles they inhabited, and ultimately for Durant, the very meaning of life itself seen through the lens of womanhood. From that playful joust with Ariel about glands and gonads, acknowledging the biological reality, right up to the profound elevation of the mother to a degenitrix, a begetting goddess. He invites us to see women not just as objects of admiration or critique,
But as central, indispensable figures in the ongoing human drama, embodying both our earthly realities, flaws and all, and our spiritual potential.
it's really a call for a deeper, more holistic appreciation, isn't it? Seeing the full spectrum of their experience as he observed it.
Absolutely. And what's truly fascinating, I think, is how Durant manages to hold these seemingly contradictory ideas in tension throughout the piece. He doesn't shy away from them.
Right. He embraces the purely aesthetic and the undeniable biological drive,
He acknowledges the ideal woman and the one with very human flaws he listed earlier.
the independent spirit, and the societal burden.
The individual's journey and the universal archetype. He doesn't try to neatly resolve these complexities or smooth them over. Instead, he weaves them together.
To create this holistic portrait.
Exactly. A portrait that, while definitely rooted in his specific time and his personal observations, still offers these potentially universal insights into the complexities of gender, life, and purpose. It is really a testament to the power of keen observation combined with deep reflection, showing us that true understanding often requires embracing paradox and looking beyond simplistic categories. He's not just telling us what he thinks, he's demonstrating how to think about these profound, complex subjects.
Which raises, I think, an important final question for you, the listener, to maybe carry away from this. How does Durant's profound, multi-layered meditation on women, this blend of admiration, critique, philosophical insight into beauty, challenges, the divine role of motherhood, how does it resonate with your own observations and experiences today? Do you find his perspective sparking new thoughts, or maybe a deeper appreciation for the people and the roles in your own life? Consider for a moment how deeply you might reflect on the people and the concepts that shape your world to uncover similar layers of meaning and complexity, just as Durant attempted to do in these final, masterful reflections. It's really an invitation, isn't it, to embark on your own kind of deep dive into the human experience.